Today we are chatting Pinterest. You know the power of Pinterest to drive traffic and leads to your business. Maybe you're already capitalizing on it, or maybe it's buried on your to-do list somewhere. Wherever you are right now, I want you to tune in to today's episode because I'm sitting down with Kate Ahl from Simple Pin Media. Kate has been running her Pinterest agency for years and knows the Pinterest platform inside and out. Her agency manages Pinterest accounts for some of the biggest bloggers, creatives, and brands, and she really has a pulse on what's working and what's not. I wanted to get on this call with her to ask her the latest and greatest Pinterest strategies. We didn't talk about pinnable graphics or board organization. You can find that information anywhere. Instead, I wanted to ask her about using Pinterest ads, the best way to convert a Pinterest viewer into a buyer, and what's working right now on Pinterest. So get out your pen and paper and get ready to take notes on this one. Let's roll the interview with Kate. You're listening to the Passive Project Podcast, where we talk about how to build your online business to make more income, more impact, and give you more freedom in your life. I'm Gemma Bonham-Carter, business strategist, mom of two, lover of passive income, automation, and coffee. Welcome to the podcast. All right, guys, get ready. This is going to be such a tactical, juicy episode. I am so excited to have the Pinterest expert, Kate Ahl, here from Simple Pin Media. Welcome, Kate, to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Yeah, so excited. So, Kate, for anybody who isn't familiar with you, can you just give us a quick intro to who you are and what your business is all about?
Yes, absolutely. So I have a Pinterest marketing and management company. What that means is we teach everybody how to do Pinterest marketing, either if they want to do it on their own or if they want us to manage for them. So that means that they come to us and they say, I hate Pinterest. I don't want to do it. We just take it over. I know it's an important part of my business. And so we manage for clients daily organically. So that just means we keep up their scheduling, their analytics. And then we also have an image creation department, promoted pins department. And then we have a membership where we teach people who basically want to DIY their own Pinterest. They really want to remain in control of strategy. And then I have a podcast, the Simple Pin podcast, where we teach people about Pinterest marketing. So
yeah, amazing. And you've been doing Pinterest. This. You've been doing this a long time, Kate, right?
Yeah,
like what
6
year
years.
Did you? 6 years. Okay.
Yep.
So I remember coming across you like way back in my lifestyle blogging, like home decor blogging days. And I think we met briefly at a conference when I was there.
Was it Snap?
Yeah, at
Yes.
Snap.
Totally.
In Salt Lake City. So that was, for those of you who are listening, Snap is like a conference largely for like craft bloggers, I would say.
Yeah.
And we met there and yeah, anyway, I've followed your business ever since. So you are definitely somebody that a lot of us, whether you're in like the blogging space or the digital entrepreneur space or whatever it might be, look up to when it comes to the Pinterest platform. So can you give us the Coles Notes version for our listeners just around like what does a what does a healthy Pinterest strategy look like for a business owner?
Yeah,
that's a loaded question. Like I feel like the whole episode could be
totally.
That, but like just the brief, big picture, like bird's eye view.
Big picture is, so I would say right away, it's all about your mindset. Pinterest is a search and discovery network. It's like a Google or a YouTube. So you want to think of it being clustered with YouTube and Google. So how you attract people is much different than Facebook and Instagram. And a lot of people are so into Instagram marketing that they try to apply the same rules to Pinterest, and it's not the same. Pinterest users are cold. They're in a gathering phase. They're planning 3 to 6 months in advance, and they are not interested in who you are. They really don't care about your brand. They care about what you're doing and how it serves them. So 97% of searches on Pinterest are unbranded, which means when you think of creating content for Pinterest, that's going to be amazing images that are vertical, 2 to 3, and then your keywords, which is the same as you would use for search for Google, because you're trying to attract them with that main image and then attract them with the search. So if you can get that squared away before you dive into Pinterest, you are light years ahead of most people.
Right. And so that's an important point of really thinking of Pinterest in a similar fashion to Google, like just as you would if you were writing a blog post with keywords where you're hoping to come up on that top page of the Google search. It's the same thing with Pinterest. You're using, but in this case, you're using beautiful imagery and keywords. It's like a double dose to get on that sort of first page of a Pinterest search.
Yes, and it does take a while because of that 3 to 6 months habitual pinning of a person. So when you start on Pinterest, you're going to feel like it's not working. You're going to
Yeah,
be like, "Where are the people? Where are they saving?" But you just have to remember that they are not thinking of taking action right away, and they definitely need to be warmed up. So giving yourself a full 6 months to a year of investment before you evaluate whether or not it was worth it.
right. Yeah. Okay. I've definitely heard that before of people trying Pinterest for like 2 weeks and then saying, oh, it doesn't work for me. Like my people aren't on Pinterest and then they call it quits. But that's just not how this platform works. I always talk about Pinterest as like having this snowball effect of like you start really tiny and just over time that snowball just gets bigger and bigger. And then later really starts like rolling down the hill and really gaining traction without you having to do anything. I think that's what I love about Pinterest the most is like you're setting up a machine to send traffic and leads your way for the long term.
Yeah, exactly. We used to talk about viral pins on Pinterest, and we've shifted that language a bit to say legacy pins because
Okay.
it's something that brings you traffic. A viral pin indicates something that goes really pops up real quick. You get a ton of traffic and then it dies down. But
Right.
legacy pins is what you're looking for on Pinterest because they bring you traffic every single day, like that snowball, month over month, year over year. And you begin to see what pins rank higher in search. Very similar again to Google. If you have a post that gets picked up and it's high on the first page, if you keep maintaining it, if you keep updating it, it will stay there. That's very similar with Pinterest too.
Interesting. Um, with these legacy pins that you've seen for your clients, are there any sort of key similarities or traits that are important to know if we're trying to create those in our own business?
Yeah, it really all depends on your niche or niche, however
Yeah,
people
yeah.
say it, right? But it all depends on that because you can have somebody who's in the food space and they might have a particular recipe that always goes crazy. Or for me, it's my how to's. So over time, if I
Right.
teach people how to clean up or how to do Pinterest boards, those are the things that start to rise to the surface, which is what you'll learn about in the 6 to 12 months. So
Right.
it all depends on what you think your ideal person is searching on Pinterest. And that's what ends up doing well.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So let's dive in to specifically using Pinterest for like email list building because as a digital product seller and most of my listeners are also digital product based business owners. That is one of the key things that we're always trying to do. We're trying to stay really focused on growing our email list so that we can nurture those subscribers and turn them into buyers. And so it's really important to have that as our lens when we're using Pinterest. It's not so much about gaining the number of followers or, any of the Pinterest analytics specifically aren't as important as simply how to use this tool to grow the email list. So, what are some of the top things that people should be thinking about when thinking through like how to utilize this platform for that purpose?
Great question. So I'll give some examples from just myself. Number
Okay.
one, I would say if you're in the 6 to 12 month stage, there's going to be a lot of throwing darts. So I would think about what is your opt in right now and getting that onto Pinterest. Number one, I'll say that people opt into your email list more when there's a blog post that leads up or a long form sales page type that tells them about the benefits to them. If you send them straight to something that's like a lead page where it's just a sign up box and a little blurb about it, your conversions are going to be lower because, again,
Okay.
those Pinterest users need more finesse. So I would say leading to blog posts that lead to an opt in is going to be the best route for sure. And then once you start to see what legacy pins get picked up, so for me, it's how to clean up Pinterest boards. We have a specific checklist for that specific post because it's our number one on Pinterest. And
Right.
so for that, it gets people into the funnel by giving them this checklist. And now passively, as it gets all this traffic, I get between 7 and 10 signups per day without even touching that post.
Yeah.
So then you back up from there and look at, okay, what are the other things that are getting eyeballs from Pinterest? Okay, now we're going to put an opt in. And I don't like to do too many opt ins. We have our one main one, which is our planner. So we definitely push that more and more, but we do want to pay attention to those top 2 to 3 on Pinterest and see, is there something specific we can get them that will get them into the funnel?
And
So
you
that's
might
the
do that, to your
approach.
point, like you may do that later down the line, right? Like you're maybe throwing spaghetti at the wall for now, putting a ton of pins out there that maybe have one primary lead magnet in all of those blog posts. But if one of those pins really takes off and that particular blog post could use a more specific lead magnet that you know would convert higher, that might be the time in which you spend the time to create that second lead magnet.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And also, you can create multiple images for the same page. That's a great advantage of Pinterest. And they see new images is what they call fresh content. So
Okay.
let's say you have a really great opt in. Let's say, take my how to clean up Pinterest boards. I can create 3 to 5, even 10 images that I can have circulating on Pinterest that lead to that one place. The important thing to think about is you want to look back at those images and those pins to see, okay, which ones did generate the most clicks that brought people to my site that generated a conversion. Some people will add UTM codes to their pins so they can see if they actually did bring a click and then therefore got a conversion to email. So there's a lot of things you can do as far as tracking, but I think the important thing noting is that you can create as many images as you want,
Yeah,
and they
I
can all
love
say
that.
different things. The important thing too is if you do have an opt-in, or you can, if somebody's going to like print it, put that on the pin image so that the pinner is prepared for what they're going to receive. And you can look at a lot of promoted pins, which is the paid advertising on Pinterest, and you can see what they're writing, small subtle calls to action, download now, or print and assemble, or get this freebie or something like that, is totally acceptable to put on the pin image, because people are much more likely to look at that image and process what's on there first. They're rarely, if ever, going to read the text below the image.
Yeah. So to recap, a lot of the pin images that you create, if you have a mock-up of your freebie, stick that mock-up, overlay it on the image
Yes.
so that people know that when they click over, there's going to be something that they can snag for free, which is going to encourage more of those clicks. And just back to your point of being able to create multiple pins for each, because here's the thing, blogging takes time. And like, I think
Hmm.
more and more people these days have stopped blogging because it has been such a time consuming activity. But there is still so much value in blogging in terms of creating that content machine that can drive leads into your business every single day. And blogging, it can be for Google and for Pinterest. We can look at it for both platforms. But if you can create 10, 15, 20 cornerstone amazing blog articles, and like you could put that on your list and create all of them this year. Like for those
Mm.
listening, I know that you could do that this year. If you haven't created one blog post before, set yourself a goal to create 20 this year about the top questions or pain points or things that your prospects or customers are dealing with. Get those keywords in there for Google, and then create, to Kate's point, 5 pin graphics per blog post. And they don't need to be all embedded in the blog post, right? You can just have
Yeah.
one of them in the blog post, and then
Hmm.
the rest you can just upload to Pinterest and make sure that the URL is pointing to your blog post. Is that what you recommend, Kate?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And also on your site to have share buttons where if people do come from Google or another location, they can share it to Pinterest. Because remember, Pinterest is one of the best places to save content for later. There's
Right.
not really any other places where people think about saving things.
Right.
And so even though not everybody's a user, you still want to give that opportunity for them to share. But yeah, you can only put one image in the post. That's perfectly fine. And then have all the other ones just live on Pinterest. Or you can even use Tailwind for a scheduling tool, which helps you stay on top of it. You can also upload it into drafts and then schedule it out that way as well.
Okay. Let's actually take a minute and just talk about Tailwind. I was going to ask you about that at the end of the episode, but since we brought it up, let's just talk through that. So Tailwind is a scheduling tool that you guys can all use for Pinterest so that it takes away some of the manual sort of tasks related to keeping your Pinterest going. And why is it that people should be using Tailwind, Kate?
I think one of the great things is that you don't have to remember to pin every single day. And Pinterest has said they like that consistency, that dripping out of content, if you will. And Tailwind
Mhm.
allows you to schedule really far in advance so that you don't have to think about, oh, did I pin this? I can't remember if I did or not. Plus, you get really good analytics to see how that pin performs and how your boards are performing too, as well. So, not
Right.
just the scheduling tool, but the analytics to be able to evaluate if your strategy is actually working.
Right. Yeah. And with Tailwind, like, is there any current? I know that it seems to fluctuate, like how much of your own content versus other people's content you should be pinning. Are there any current guidelines on that?
100% your own. Just
100.
share your own content.
Really?
Yeah, you can share other people's if you feel like I share other people's because they're a colleague. Like I would share your stuff
Yeah.
to my email marketing board or something like that. It's if I don't talk about it or if I'm not going to maybe even in somebody in the Pinterest space, they're sharing something I think is really valuable. I would share that. But Pinterest really says go ahead and focus on your own content. Don't worry about this whole reciprocity piece, thinking it tricks the algorithm into thinking you have greater engagement or anything like that. They've said, feel free to do 100% of your own. That's what I
Re-
do.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
so this is actually blowing my mind because
Mhm.
I may be a couple years out of date with my Pinterest like knowledge.
There
And it
was
used to
80/20 for a long time.
80/20, and I even feel like for a while it was even like 60/40. Like they were
Yeah.
really encouraging you to post a lot, like pin a lot of other people's stuff.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
They took a first step to really clear up that myth or rumor in April of 2018 to say, let your audience repin for you, let them share for you, but you just focus on your own content. Don't worry about pinning other people's stuff unless you want to.
And are there any guidelines around how many pins a day we should be doing?
I always take an approach to look at how much content you're creating. So a minimum of around 5 is what I tell people to stick with, but you don't want to repeat back to back to back the same type of content. So
Yeah.
if you're somebody who has not gotten on the blog post train and you don't have a whole lot, it's okay just to do 1 to 2 and you can do it that same pin to different boards too as well if it fits on those boards. So you just want to be conscious of how close together we're starting to say farther apart. So I'm doing about 7 days between pins right now. Some people are even doing further. But that's the biggest thing is that Pinterest just wants fresh content with new images. So anytime you create a new image, you're good to go because it looks like a brand new pin.
So that's, yeah, so they were wanting fresh content. Interesting.
Definitely.
And so when you say, just so I can clarify, when you say 7 days between a pin, let's say I'm a food blogger and I'm pinning a pin to my, I don't know, sweet eats, like dessert board or something, but it also could go on my appetizers board. Is it 7 days between pinning that same pin to my two own boards?
Correct.
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
So in any instance, you want 7 days between a,
Hmm.
a given pin. Okay.
Yeah, I think Pinterest is really trying to crack down on the people who are pinning back to back to back and like really just spamming the system
Right.
with the same pin over and over. So they're saying just spread it out, drip it out because your users don't want it all back to back.
Yeah.
They also want it dripped out.
Yeah. Okay. And then just back to the Tailwind piece, one thing I would mention for our listeners, and you can correct me if this has changed, but at least back in the day, Tailwind was the preferred scheduler of Pinterest too. Like Pinterest actually said, this is the scheduler you should use. And so we as users, especially users using it from a business perspective, know that it's okay to be using that tool as opposed to other tools that Pinterest may not really like.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. They are still in that position. They have a
Okay.
great close relationship with Pinterest. So not only are you getting a great approved tool, but they get the latest updates from Pinterest to be compliant.
Amazing. Okay, so you can feel really safe with using that tool. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into using promoted pins because this is something that I'm personally super interested in. It's on my 2020 list of things to do is to start using promoted pins, and I really want to dive in because I think there is so much potential for using Pinterest as an advertising platform that if you have a budget to put towards ads, this might be just the right platform for you. Especially when you compare it to like the Facebook and Instagram ads platform. So
Mhm.
Kate, with promoted pins, you do use them with your clients?
Yeah, we do. We have a promoted pins department that we work with, and we're very specific about the clients in which we do work with and their goals. So,
Okay.
backing up from that, I would say for promoted pins, we only do right now traffic campaigns. There's 4 different options in there: awareness, video, app, and then traffic. And traffic, you're only paying for a click. So you're not paying for an engagement metric like impressions or saves. You're just paying for when somebody clicks through to your site. So
Yeah.
we like that because then that's where you get the email sign up, right? And
Yeah. Why
so
pay for anything else?
exactly. So we'll only work with clients right now who are doing something that they can specifically measure, like email or a product purchase or a service sign up or like a discovery call. We don't do traffic campaigns specifically for ad and affiliate monetized sites because
Right.
it's just way too hard to measure. It's
To
really
measure
difficult.
the ROI of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
That makes sense. So for everybody who's listening, I think the majority of people who are listening do have something like either a digital offer or they are a coach or consultant who might like the book a call might be the main call to action, or maybe
Mhm.
they sell some other type of product on their website. So that I think makes sense for all of us who are listening. Um, what are some considerations we need to think about when we're sort of thinking about using promoted pins?
So one of the things right away is your image. That because we talked about that before with organic, it's going to be the same with the paid advertising. So what I always tell people to do is go onto Pinterest, go to your smart feed, and look at what other promoted pin advertisers are putting on their images, especially those who are spending a lot of money on awareness. You
How
notice
can you
they
find that out?
so
How do you know?
when you go onto Pinterest and you scroll through, what you'll see right underneath the pin is promoted by, and it has
Okay.
a little arrow that's going diagonal up to the right. And what that means is when you click on it, you're going straight to their website. They're now called One Tap, which they didn't used to have that. You used to be able to do a close up and gauge whether or not you wanted to click. But now that makes that click, the CTR, just so much higher because people are taking action right away and they can bounce away. So you have to be really clear on your image what they're going to get, but you don't want too much text. So you look through and you'll see the, promoted by, they have calls to action on them. Shop now, take the quiz, join the challenge, anything like that. And most of the time it leads to your email sign up. And so that's also great to use promoted pins for that reason because people are prepared, especially if
Yes.
it's a challenge or a quiz.
Yeah.
You want
Okay.
to take lessons from that. And then you want to be thinking too, really about like who you're targeting. So when you go into the traffic campaign, you can target by keywords, you can target by interest, you can target even by location.
Hmm.
So you want to be very intentional about who you think is going to engage with your pins and what they will be searching to click through to your site.
Right. So with these promoted pins, with regular pins, we heard you say it really needs to go to either a blog post or a long form opt-in page. None of these like short landing pages, which I can tell you I have experienced. Like I was a lazy marketer, right? And just wanted a short landing page for my email opt in and created a bunch of pins to send people there. And it didn't work nearly as well as when I sent them to blog posts. So I can for sure stand by that recommendation. But with a promoted pin, are we sending them straight to, for instance, like let's say we sell like a $30 smaller ticket digital offer that maybe is like our get them through the door offer, and we're later going to upsell them on something that's a bit more expensive.
Hmm.
Are we selling them or are we sending them straight to the sales page with that promoted pin, or should we be sending them to a blog post where they opt in, where there's a funnel attached on the back end?
Yeah, that one is probably the most preferred. You can try both, but what we've seen is that people aren't ready to buy. And so you have to warm them up. So if you do have that long form sales page or a blog post that gets them into the opt in, and then you might have like a tripwire or an immediate offer that comes up right away, that is a super successful way to lead them through because they don't know you. They don't know, unless you have really great brand recognition already, they're
Hmm.
not quite ready to buy your product. So sending them through a warm up sequence or a warm up funnel is usually the best way to do it. The other thing to note too is that promoted pins take a long time to optimize. So you have to wait a full 7 days before you get really accurate data. And then I would even wait another 7 before you make changes. So that's 2 weeks of just watching how the ad performs before you make any changes, which is different than Facebook and Instagram, where you can make changes, within 20 minutes. You
Yeah.
just can't do that with Pinterest because it takes a while to you let Pinterest know how they're going to categorize it, who they're going to show it to. And if you make changes too quickly, you're just really sabotaging your campaign.
Okay. Any differences that we should be aware of whether we're selling a $30 mini product versus a $500 online course?
Mm.
I mean, are we treating those two things the same way?
No, definitely not. You're
Okay.
gonna wanna, the $30 course might be a much easier buy, because $30 is just different than
Yeah.
500. 500 is gonna be way down the line. You're gonna have to for sure get them to have buy-in to who you are. So for us, what we do is we get them in the door with the planner, and then we have a dashboard that we might sell them that's pretty inexpensive. It's about $30, and then have a series of emails that happens before we might sell them into the membership or a higher paid product, just because they don't know anything about us.
And with the dashboard, though, are you making that offer very soon after they have
Yes,
come through the doors?
that's the tripwire or whatever term people want to use. That's the one that right after they sign up for their email, that's what they'll get.
And do they get it on a page that pops up as soon as they've inputted their email, or are you sending it via an email?
Yes, correct. They get the pop-up right away right after they
Okay.
put in their email.
Okay, interesting. So, with Facebook and Instagram ads, with my personal experience, I've been able to send people straight to a sales page for a $30 offer. I don't even need that in between. I can just send them
Mhm.
straight to a sales page. The ROI has always been positive. And then, like you mentioned, if I'm selling a higher ticket offer, I do that through like a longer evergreen email funnel that I have set up in my business. But in this case, for Pinterest, I may want to change my strategy and have a very related freebie to my $30
Mhm.
offer that I kind of quote unquote sell them on first, and then
Yeah.
use my $30 offer as a tripwire.
And think of them as skeptics.
Right.
Think of them as they are not ready to pull out their wallet. So for a long time, Pinterest even tried having the buy button on the platform, but
Uh-huh.
they found that it wasn't successful. People needed to get through this hurdle. Even our physical product sellers will say that it's much easier to get them onto an email list that tackles like a challenge. So we have one of our clients who's custom handmade tile, right? So her challenge to people is, okay, how do you know which samples to choose, or how do you know how to select your tile? She gets them on her email list that way so she can educate about tile choices. And then they go into making this pretty significant purchase for their home with the tile that she offers. And
Right.
so she knows they're not going to go straight to pick out your subway tile here. They might save a ton of it, right? Like they might save it all for later because they're trying to build this, beautiful kitchen or bathroom, but they're not quite ready to buy. And I think with services too, you have to really solve that problem because they're asking that how to,
Hmm.
or and so how does your business solve that how to problem? And you said it earlier, how do you answer those questions that you're getting repeatedly? That's what the Pinterest user is asking. And they're kind of like, oh no, wait, I'm not ready to buy from you yet, but maybe I will be if you can convince me that you have the true solution to my problem.
Right. Yeah. So we do need to think of them as their own. It's like their own group of people. They are different from like the Facebook and Instagram
Mhm.
user.
100%.
Okay, interesting. So with promoted pins, when we've set this up as a traffic campaign, generally speaking, can you give us some ideas around what kind of I mean, what kind of budget we might be able to expect.
Mm.
Like what I've heard, word on the street is that I can get these ads for a heck of a lot cheaper than Facebook and Instagram. So
Mm.
is that accurate?
In some cases, it can be, but I know as we've tested some, I can right now get a lead for like 70 cents on Facebook, but for a while on Pinterest, it was like $1.40. So
Mm,
it just depends on what, I guess, landscape or environment you have. But we set ours right about $10 to $15 a day. And I just have in my mind, I'm going to run it for a month and just see what happens. So I would tell anybody going into it, gear up for your budget for a month to see how much you're going to get your CPC as low as you can get it, obviously, but you never know who you're competing with. If you're in a
right.
really competitive niche where tons of people are talking about budgeting in January, of course, you're going to want to spend more money because everybody's talking about that, or healthy food or whatever. But if you're something that's more evergreen around, year round, people are asking that question, you might be able to drop it down a little bit more. But it really just depends. So I would say $10 a day is probably your baseline of where you should sit. And then really decide from there what you're going to do as far as increasing or decreasing based on how much an email subscriber is worth to you.
Yeah. Okay. And then one last question around this was the images that we're going to use for our promoted pins. Is it best practice to be using existing pin images that have done well for us organically, or is it okay to create brand new images to use as our promoted pins?
I would say that I would go with the one that has worked before, because that's also the beauty of promoted pins is you can take something that's already getting a lot of traffic, put some dollars behind it, and then once you stop putting dollars behind it, it still lives on Pinterest. Whereas, with
Interesting.
Facebook, you run an ad and it's done.
Yeah.
Well, this just lives forever. So sure, take one that's been doing well, put some money behind it. That's what we do with our How to Clean Up Pinterest boards. Certain times of year, we'll just put money behind it, but it still gives us traffic even when we're not paying for it.
Right.
But you can do a brand new one. You can test it out, but you're going to want to know that it's going to be different than the one you are doing organically, and you're going to get different results. So we always tell people, try to A/B test organically just to see which one you see gets more clicks, and then maybe go with that one. But again, you can also test side by side a promoted pin. You can do the campaigns the exact same way, just two different images. And then if you see that one's really killing it with clicks and the other one's not, turn one of them off and then just go with the
Exactly.
other one.
Yeah. Okay. So good. Um, any trends that we should be thinking about or things that you're kind of seeing happen in 2020 on Pinterest that we should know about?
Yeah, I think the biggest change is just what they came out with about a month ago, which was to say they're going to really crack down on spam, because spam and stolen pins have been a problem on Pinterest.
Mm,
And so they have to do something to address it, which means they have to change their algorithm a little bit. And that mostly is related to their spam algorithm. So their regular algorithm operates on images and keywords. So those two have always been main factors. But what they're saying now is, if you pin 100 times a day and you're pinning the same pin over and over, we will flag you with our algorithm. And so that's why we kind of increase that time between pins, because we don't
right.
want to get caught up in that. But also, just for those who are listening, if you do get oh, your account's been suspended or shut down and you've been doing everything right, the chances are it's an accident, especially during this time. So email Pinterest back over and over and over again, and it'll take about a week. They will reinstate your account. But we've been seeing this happen right now with these tweaks to the algorithm, that people who are following best practices are getting caught up in these sweeps.
Right.
So for the most part, we don't deal with anybody who is the 100 pins a day, same pin over and over. Those are usually bots, and that's what they're trying to catch.
Right. That makes
So
sense.
for the most part, it's really the change on Pinterest this year. I would say video pins are really great, gaining in steam, and they were a big initiative for Pinterest last year. I believe they'll grow even more this year as we see them on our phone in the feed. They're popping up. Those are big. And then new images. So if you can really nail your image game, there's tons of people you can hire out if you hate images. I hate creating Pinterest images. It's like I want to poke my eyeballs out, but I love the strategy behind it. So really also think about, if Pinterest does want a lot of new images and you want to test them, sometimes it's better use of your time just to hire that out. And then you focus back on the email list building or the tripwire or the funnel. And I think that's an important thing to think about with Pinterest marketing is where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses? It takes me 5 hours, no joke, to try to create a Pinterest image. In 5 hours, I could whip out tons of blog posts, tons of email funnels, opt-ins. I could kill it on that side.
Yeah.
And so it's really paying attention to strengths and weaknesses when it comes to Pinterest.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I have somebody who helps me with she makes 10 new pin images a month for both of my businesses. And
Perfect.
it's just an ongoing relationship and it works really well for both of us. And she loves doing it. And
Yeah.
like you, I actually don't mind doing it, but it was one of those situations where I knew that I could be spending my time on much more like high ROI activities in my business.
Yes,
So
that is the key. The
yeah.
ROI on images is not high for
Yeah.
some of us.
Yeah. Okay. One quick question before we sign off about the video pins. These are short videos. What are
Yes.
these?
Very short videos, less than 40 seconds. In fact, our image team, we just created a video pin creation program and we did a beta test for 2 months to really see what was working and not working. Square images or a 2:3 1916 was also another dimension that was working. Less than 40 seconds, no sound, no talking, very much like what we saw on Facebook probably 4 years ago with those tasty style videos, but it doesn't apply only to the food space. But what you want to do is just a very simple tutorial or things that pop up, just something very catchy, right? And
Could
I
it
don't know
be
how that would.
something where it's like however many images that are kind of just on I don't know what you call that, like on a rotation or whatever?
Oh, yeah. You could do that too. I think for the services based industry or digital products, we haven't quite seen somebody crack the code as far as video there quite
Right.
yet. But I would say it's definitely worth it. But I don't think that the face is not going to be something that's going to draw people in right now because video is such a speed bump for Pinterest users for so long that they were like,
Right.
what is this? But now that Pinterest is putting it on their app in lots of different places, I would say look around to see what other people are doing, but just follow those guidelines. Square, less than 40 seconds, no sound, be very just poppy and informative, like a little infomercial.
Okay. Okay. Love it. Kate, tell people where they can find out more about how to use Pinterest for their business.
Yes, I am at Simple Pin Media everywhere and then simplepinmedia.com. And we have a ton of resources for people who are They are like, I don't even know what to do with Pinterest. So we have that there, plus our planner, which is like 20 pages. So you can go get all of that goodness. And the podcast is there as well.
Okay, perfect. We'll link up to the planner specifically in the show notes. So for anybody who wants to grab that, make sure to head on there and snag it. And while you're listening to this episode, if you want to snap a picture, share your biggest takeaway, the biggest thing you learned, the thing you're going to put into action next in your business, make sure to tag myself at Gemma.Bonham-Carter and Kate at Simple Pin Media so that we can see it and we can share it and chat with you. Thank you guys so much for listening. Kate, thank you so much for being on the show. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Are you a digital product creator but aren't seeing the sales you want in your business yet? Not sure how to effectively market your offers and scale them? Don't have an evergreen funnel and live launching system that works for you? Then you need to go register for my free masterclass, Make Mo Money, Honey, How to Grow and Scale Your Digital Product Business. I'm walking you through some of my best tips like the hybrid marketing method and the bucket system and letting you in on the 3 big mistakes I see so many digital entrepreneurs making that are keeping them stuck. This 1 hour could be the thing that radically transforms your business and life. Go register at GemmaBonham-Carter.com/class.